Hello, Internet! My name is Prunk, and welcome to Fixing Yu-Gi-Oh!, where we use the powers of game design and hindsight to fix the many, many issues of early Yu-Gi-Oh! And I don't want to do this one. There's just so many bad cards. Like, this is historically one of the worst sets of all times, or at least selling-wise. Uh, I say that because like the best cards here are common, like Instant Fusion and Snipe Hunter are like really the only redeeming cards in the set. But other than that, it just gives us like Chain Burn. I'm gonna start drinking after this one, I think. This set does contain many of the latest cards from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Anime. It includes cards like from Zane and Chancellor Shepard. We get some strategies focusing on the A counters again with the alien stuff, which we talked about a lot in last set. Chain Links, Cyberdark series is kind of neat, but LV monsters, which is pretty nice. I'm also getting over a cold, so my voice might sound a little weird today, so sorry. I really had to do some research on this set because I wasn't super familiar with how they work, and I just took the like Wikipedia thing and I tried playtesting them a little bit online just to see how well they did back for that time, only using cards for that time period. And basically how it works is all the level 4 Cyberdark monsters have trigger effects to equip themselves to a level 3 or lower dragon from the graveyard. So you have to get a dragon into the graveyard first. And when that all happens when they're normal summons, so it's not a bad effect. They also gain attack boost equal to that attack of the equipped monster, and the equipped monster also acts as like a destruction substitute when a Cyberdark monster would be destroyed by battle. So your options at this point in the game though are pretty limited because you'd have to run a like small dragon archetype, which is cool, but as far as level 3 monsters to be equipped, like Twin-Headed Behemoth is automatically stands out as like the best of, but at this time period when this came out, it was only at one copy because it didn't have its errata yet, where it was just always coming back. And like I guess you run like a masked dragon, armed dragon kind of sub engine with it. It's probably the best thing that you can do with this archetype to try and run that because armed dragons are level 3 at first, which is kind of nice. And you can play like the mass dragon to search them out. So like you do have some consistency engine built in. So these cards are going to gain 1200 grabbing the armed dragon from the graveyard, which isn't horrible. I mean, overall, these cards are fine effect wise. They have built in protection and had extra effects while equipped. Like, Konami is still trying to make Union monsters work. And I feel like they finally figured it out, at least to a decent extent. Uh, with that said, this deck overall didn't do well. It required a lot of setup, and it does work. Uh, this is my build that I went out and it gets big monsters out really nice with Power Bond, and you can make a pretty nice swing. But I mean, Future Fusion helps with this deck out a lot, and I'm using the current ban list, and there's by no means going to be a tier 1 deck, but I think this deck is decently viable. This is my first crack at it, at least. So I tried making this as competitive as I possibly could, and it definitely has some consistency issues, but I think with the playing the Mass Dragon setup and trying to just focus on some of the like more Cyber Dragon stuff, there's a lot that can happen in this list so that you have multiple strategies kind of going in, which is both good and bad. You have cyber dragons that kind of help support it as well. There's been a few times where I've been able to get our big boss fusion card out on the field as well. It's kind of good if you're able to get like a big like thunder or armed dragon onto this card. Cyber Dark Dragon is just target one dragon monster in your graveyard, equip it to this card. It gains attack equal to the attack. It gains 100 attack for each monster in your graveyard, which is pretty nice as well. So it gets even bigger. This card would be destroyed by battle, destroy the equipped monster. It has the built-in protection. Like, it is a big, cool boss monster, but the list itself is just little Jimmy, did I do it kind of thing. Overall, this deck is playable by itself, and I don't actually have a good fix for this whole archetype, which is kind of disappointing. I thought I could change up something, but like the deck does work. It does do what's intended. And using just like the ban list at the time, like I'm able to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And have multiple different strategies. I don't think it's ever going to be like you can't ever have a solo archetype. You could possibly change like do something with like some of your all your cards in the graveyard are going to become dragons while this card's in the field, or you could probably add something along those lines. But overall, this deck list does work. It does offer some OTK potential, but overall it's just a slower version of what Cyber Dragons are, but there's not much to fix. Like, what do I do? Do I give them more stats? Do I change? Like, the playstyle works. It's basically a union monster deck, but you're getting the materials from the discard pile. But if you compare this to like the XYZ stuff, it works out really well because it's still a one card combo XYZ deck. Or I'm sorry, XYZ. It's a one card combo union deck compared to some of those other archetypes. So I think it's fine. We're gonna move on, I think, and go into something a little bit more interesting. Alert Queen and Dark Lucius. Bringing back the LV monsters was an interesting choice, and honestly, like we never got a competitive version of LV monsters in the first place, so we could kind of continue that. But I think this might actually be too good. Um, Outside of Horus and Armed Dragon, like a lot of the LV cards were just really support cards for existing decks. Like the Warrior stuff, you kind of splashed in Mystic Swordsman level 2. You never played level 4 or 6 really. But I think I want to really rework these two cards to make LV monsters into a full archetype instead of just individual pieces. But first, I'm going to start with Allure Queen and kind of keep her with our existing format. All the Allure Queen cards say that you can take a card your opponent controls of a level equal to or lower than the level of the monster you equip it, and during your next standby phase, you can send that card to the graveyard to special summon the next level, like version up. So they're all leveling up if you manage to steal something. The problem is it starts at level 3. First, and you have to have a level 3 character to start targeting another enemy level 3 character. So they're just not going to play their level 3s when you have this card in the field. You might get lucky and steal a Sandgin, but it's not like this card's going to survive with a Sandgin like attached to it. The queen cards themselves are just super weak. I mean, they're stealing opponent's stuff. They can't have everything, and I don't want to buff their stat line just because that'll make them more protected. I think there's more interesting things we can do. And even though we just kind of went over alien stuff, I do feel like this deck is about alluring your opponent's stuff to your side of the field. And I don't want to change the Allure Queen concept too much. So I think we could go around this in a different way, though. We're going to be introducing a field card. While you control Allure Queen, reduce the level of all monsters your opponent controls by 1. That helps the startup quite a bit. Once per turn, you may discard an Allure Queen monster to add an Allure Queen with a different level from your deck to your hand. So this can help fixing the bricks. So if you do start with your hand and you get your 7th in your hand or something, like level 7 Allure Queen, you can go search for the level 3. So that way it's just going to add some more consistency to this as an archetype as well. We can also change the Allure Queen to say that there has to be special summon allowed from the graveyard, hand, or from the deck, which I like too. And it allows us to kind of dump the bad cards that we need and get the good cards that we need out of the graveyard as well. So with that, I think we can build a cool deck around them. Let's focus on Dark Lucius. He's just a 1k stat line. He basically says, currently negate the effects of opponent's monster destroyed by battle with this card. 1k, sure, whatever. This is even beating over a recruiter, Konami. Like, it's like, these are the effects that drive me crazy. It just doesn't hit over Witch. It doesn't hit. It hits over a Sandgin if you crash it in an attack mode. It doesn't hit over like any of the recruiters at all. Like most of them are like between like 1100 and 1400 defense. Like it's the cards that you need to hit. This thing doesn't swing over that and triggers their effect. But anyway, that's a rant. During your standby phase after the next turn, after this card has destroyed a monster by battle, so this thing has to kill something weaker than a 1k and survive for another turn, so you can special summon a 1 level 6 from your hand or deck. It's bad, it's boring. We already have plenty of these effects that basically do this, and even with this, I feel like a lot of the recruiters are just being phased off anyways. So let's change this up altogether. Now, I mentioned I wanted to be able to synergize with other LV monsters, and I'm going to stick to that. And I think this card right here just needs some kind of identity. And what I want to do is, during your standby phase, whenever a level monster levels up, this card, if this card is in your graveyard, you can banish this monster and special summon 1 Dark Lucius level 6 from your hand or deck. This now allows Lucius to have their own identity, where they themselves are really just stat blocks, but getting something more unique in special summoning. So when you level up, something else levels up with you, and they both come out onto the field. That is a little scary, and throwing this guy into the graveyard is pretty like easy. I mean, you could do Foolish Burial when that comes out. I don't think it's out yet at this point, but like just even if you just have to set this card and let it die, that's not a big deal. You have plenty of discarding effects, which I'm really in favor of as well with this game. So like having like Regeki Break or Tribute to the Doomed and Magic Jammer, like cards that will get this card into the graveyard really easily. So this is kind of just good discard fodder because you don't really want to play this as a normal summon, but you also don't really want that. You want to play this card in your graveyard. And I don't feel like it's broken. You're just getting a big beater for free. So this guy is just a 1k, 1k stat line. And when something else levels up, he copies that and says, hey, I'm going to level up too. And I'm going to special summon with you. So now you're able to kind of tag team it a little bit. And most of your like level ups all happen during your standby phase. So you can actually get some good value out of this card as well. Just being able to special summon it onto the field from when another character levels up. I think this would encourage people to really focus on playing more LV focused decks, and you could play this in Armed Dragons, you could play this in Horus, you could play this with Mystic Swordsman and get more beat sticks onto the field. Like there's a lot of good if I'm playing an LV monster deck, I might play this, and then some of those general staples, I might look into like level up that card that barely anybody plays. I might want that a little bit more because I want to make sure I'm getting my levels up faster. So I like the concept a lot. And worst case, you're really just getting a big beat stick onto the field. And with that, I think we can just it synergizes with the queen. It's when it synergizes with all of our previous dragons and LV cards, not dragons, but armed dragons, who I think of the most. And I consider this fixed. Like, I feel like the barrier statues, we could possibly do something with them, but I think they actually will support some of the familiar cards that we've changed previously. And we're actually going to talk about a little bit next week, where you could probably splash these cards into that deck. So I don't really want to change them. They're floodgate monsters. They're not fun, but they're playable as they are. The chain combo stuff, like it is a completely playable deck. It's not personally what I enjoy, but I know plenty of players who like the deck, and it doesn't need any fixes because it does what it is intended for as well. We got some alien cards, which I think with a lot of the changes that we made previously with aliens, again, a lot of these aliens are gonna just be fine. Like we have Alien Mars, who says effect monsters with A counters are negated, which is pretty strong, especially because we made distributing A counters a lot easier. We had Alien Infiltrator, which is once per turn, this card can move to an adjacent unoccupied monster zone if no spell or trap cards in the zone. Same column, this card can attack directly. It's bad, but it's a unique effect, and I don't want to change it. I think these unique effects are completely fine. Some good cards other than Vanity Fiends and Vanity Rulers are toxic to the game, but hey, they are floodgate monsters, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Does kind of need that a little bit. Like, the set only really had 60 cards, and one is an archetype that is completely playable. The other one is a chain archetype, which is degenerate, but perfectly playable again. And I think that we really fixed the core like grouping of characters that we get with like a Lure Queen. Oh yeah, Snipe Hunter's good. So this like that makes Dark Lucius Snipe Hunter's in the set, which combos really well with Dark Lucius too. So I'm gonna consider this all fixed, and we'll call it for this one. Thank you all so much for the support. If you guys do like this content, please like, subscribe, do all the YouTube things. I'm having fun doing this stuff again. And with some of the newer cards, it's going to be more interesting, especially because we're going to feed back with a lot of our previous episodes. So please go check out some older episodes if this is your first one. And I would love to hear any kind of comments and feedback you could do. What cards did I miss? I'm sure there's somebody in here that wants to see some changes on some of these other Cyberdark cards, but they're all just random one-ofs, and we could go through card by card, but I don't feel like that's good for the series. So, with that said, peace out. Love y'all. Mwah. Bye.